This debate was something else. However, I'm with you guys today not to analyze the debate, just to recap it. I'll have my analysis show with my friends, or just a friend, depending on how many people can actually do it with me tomorrow. So it was 90 minutes, it was six segments. They covered the Supreme Court, COVID 19, they covered the economy, race, and election integrity, as well as climate change. Now, Trump on the Supreme Court, when asked about his potential appointment, he was said, "Hey, we won. We can put forth anyone we so choose to, and at any time, because he's the president for 4 years, not three." And he is actually correct about that. He said the Democrats would do the same thing with Merrick Garland if they had the votes. That's we don't know that for sure, but at the same time, he was right. He was right in that assessment. Biden also went on to say that the American people should have the chance to vote in their president and their Congress before replacing Justice Ginsburg, and that very well could be true as well. Like these elections, especially election cycles, are a referendum on the sitting president, and maybe Biden is right in that sense that we should actually wait to see what the people say before the sitting president or acting president puts forth anybody for Supreme Court. They also brought up Obamacare and pre-existing conditions, and Biden did say, and I will fact check this. Biden did say that over 100 million Americans have pre-existing conditions. That's partially true. 50 to 129 million Americans do. There's a big estimate, so we're not entirely sure about that. Um, Trump's evokes um, RBG's own quotes about the presidency and terms of office to validate what he's saying about his appointees. He says that he wants to replace and repeal Obamacare, but gave no real plan. However, he did say he believes in a favored nations clause. He thinks he wants to slash drug prices, and he attacks Biden's years for the first time in government, which was 47 in total. Biden says with the Supreme Court, we have to worry about Roe v. Wade, Obamacare. We have to worry about Trump's last Trump's lack of executive orders for all the things that he say that should have been taken care of. He mentions that Trump should have had an executive order or two or three or however many in place that would have helped. Um, the issue of court packing was brought up, and in the filibuster, and Biden was non-committal. He would not answer a question one or the other. But I do find it interesting that Trump did hit Biden early on barely beating Bernie Sanders, and he also attributed uh, kind of that Biden screwed over Bernie Sanders with the help of Elizabeth Warren. And I found that to be a very, very interesting exchange. And I think people might have overlooked that, but I caught that relatively quickly. They moved on to COVID 19. Biden says 7 million people have been infected, 200,000 have died, and attacks the president's response to the crisis, invokes secret audio talking about the president knew the severity but didn't want to panic the American people. He attacks the praise that the president has levied on the president of China, and attacks Trump on being in bunkers instead of dealing with the problems head on the front lines. Trump has squarely placed this on China. He said he acted appropriately by closing the borders to other countries. He feels that other countries didn't divulge the death count, so we can't sit there and say we have 21%, I believe, of the total coronavirus death counts if the other countries aren't divulging how many people in their countries have actually died. And he says fake news has ruined his works, and he invokes H1N1 or the swine flu, to which Biden has responded that 14,000 people died during H1N1 versus the 21 I'm sorry, versus the 200,000 who died during the coronavirus. And he takes his time instead of speaking to Trump to speak for like the first of three really major times to speak straight into the camera and talk to the American people and use his traditional, like they call Uncle Joe isms to, kind of get the ball rolling for himself. Trump is at odds with the experts, so Chris Wallace has said, and he also says that he feels like the experts are politicizing the issue, and Biden attacks Trump remarks on the timeline and of when the coronavirus will go away. Because remember, he said it'd be gone by the warmer months, and the joke about injecting bleach into somebody's arm. But President Trump says it was a joke. Biden doesn't think so. Biden was then hit with Kamala Harris's remarks on the vaccine and not exactly trusting that it'd be ready in time or relatively soon. And Biden says again he speaks straight to the cameras, and he talks about having trust in medicine, but at the same time having everything thoroughly done and thoroughly brought out properly. Trump attacks Biden's intellect and says Biden couldn't handle the crisis the way he did. Biden is much more reluctant as we're talking about COVID to reopen businesses because his lack of a plan, because he feels he needs to be on the ground, he needs to be on the ground to know what's going on, but feels like Trump's lack of plan has been an issue and hits him for playing golf all the time. Trump said Biden wants to keep the country shut down. The Democratic governors who are in control of most of these areas are keeping it down for political reasons, and he says he wears his mask when needed and attacks Joe Biden for wearing masks no matter what. And they also talk about the contrasts and their rallying styles. Biden has smaller settings with masks. Trump, as you can see, has big rallies with 25, 30,000 people. Most are maskless without social distancing. And Trump said the reason why, it's not funny, the reason why they are so packed for Trump and not packed for Biden is because Biden can't get the people. Because Biden is just not popular enough to get the people. Biden says that these masks can save up to 100,000 lives by January because the analysis is saying that we very well could be having another 200,000 deaths by January, and that these masks are a huge, huge help. Trump did hit back on that a little bit, saying that Dr. Fauci had been inconsistent in his messaging, and in some parts he was, because, with the masks and so on and so forth. But right now, they're saying the masks are working, and that's what Biden's point was. They go to the economy. It's been a faster recovery than expected. It's only 8.4% unemployment. Trump sees things as a V recovery, whereas Biden sees things as a K recovery. Trump, he blames China. He says he put 10.4 million people back in the workforce, but the recovery is slowed down because the governors, the mostly Democratic governors, he says, are politicizing the issue, and Biden will shut everything and everyone down. Biden says millionaires and billionaires have done well, which is true. And how are the small town people doing? And he again goes to the camera again and attacks Trump's taxes, saying he paid what, 760 some odd dollars a year in taxes. He pays more than the average school teacher does. He pays less than the average school teacher does in their taxes. He says increases in COVID have happened, so the economy needs to be secondary to people's health. 1 in 6 small businesses have been closing, and he's putting forth a plan to give these small businesses money to keep themselves open while the recovery is happening. Trump says people want money and to be entertained. He mentioned football. He mentioned people wanting to do things because it feels like it's a prison, and he feels like that their comfort is a little more important than the optics of safety, as Biden's putting it. Trump income taxes brought up again. He says I've paid millions. He said 1 year I paid 28 million, another year I paid 37 million. Biden asked him to release his tax returns. Trump does not mention anything, but he does call out Biden and Obama's tax codes. And the reason why that Trump was able to take advantage of loopholes was because of these tax codes and these tax credits given to people who build, who do very, very, important things with businesses, so on and so forth. And then Trump tells Biden that I've done more in 47 months than you have in 47 years. Biden says that his tax plan will include a tax increase on people who make $400,000 a year or more, and it will have $4 trillion in taxes over 10 years. We'll raise corporate taxes from 21% to 28%. We'll roll back Trump's tax plan, and Chris Wallace points it out to Trump, because Trump likes to boast about the economy, that President Obama's last 3 years had 1 million more jobs created than Trump's first 3 years. Obama, according to Biden, handed Trump a good economy. Trump doesn't think so. Trump feels like he brought back over 700,000 jobs, mostly manufacturing. Biden has brought back General Motors and Chrysler, and Trump's debt is now higher with China than it was under Obama, and he also accused Trump of losing the jobs of Chrysler and GM in the Midwest back again. Trump brings up Hunter Biden for the first time and asks how he got his money from these other countries. Trump also said, because there was talk from Biden saying that people on your side and people in your camp have cleared my son of wrongdoing, so on and so forth, and Trump said, I will fire them when you tell me who they are. Then we move on to race. Biden got into the race, he says, because of Trump saying very fine people on both sides in Charlottesville. Trump was said to have used tear gas on a peaceful protest in D.C. and has been using dog whistling to get his base riled up. And 1 in 1,000 African Americans will be killed because of COVID-19, and it could go to 1 in 500 if Trump doesn't get his stuff together. Trump says Biden's crime bill was disastrous for African Americans. He called African Americans super predators. That was actually Hillary Clinton. Has gotten people. Trump has said he's gotten people of color out of jail. Has touts his support from law enforcement as a law and order president, and has said that has told Vice President Biden, "Hey, who in law enforcement is supporting you?" To which Biden truthfully had no answer and said, "We're not going to get into this." Biden believes that there is systemic racism and injustice in this country. Mostly there are good cops, but the bad cops need to be held accountable in reference to Breonna Taylor, and he would hold a summit with civil leaders and cops to make sure that these things are being met. President Trump said racial sensitivity training was bad and sick and racist, and it taught people to hate America, his words, not mine. Biden said Trump is flat out racist. People need to understand the differences and what they represent and feel because, we're not as culturally sensitive as we need to be, and he can unite us. Trump says Obama's era was divisive. Biden says that violence came down 15% under Obama, but he believes in law and order with justice. Trump says law and order is a partisan issue, has been made a partisan issue. Biden says Trump uses law and order as a dog whistle and believes in reimagining policing, which is he's against defunding the police, but it feels like more money should be allocated to them, citing that Trump has actually slashed money for them and feels like with more money we can actually increase the people who are there to help the police in situations like psychiatrists and mental health experts, things like that. So it's not just all in the police, which, okay. Biden then says local authorities could handle the business of protests if Trump's people got out of the way, and he said that Kellyanne Conway says that riots helped Trump's cause, which Trump denied. Trump says racial issues are a left thing, but he did not condemn white supremacists by name and pivoted instead to Antifa. Then they move on to records. Trump says no president has done more than him against adversity. He's rebuilt the military, has fixed the VA, and has a 91% approval rating. He has appointed 300 federal judges and potentially three Supreme Court justices. Biden says under Trump, we've gotten weaker, more divided, violent. Biden has touted his record against Putin, saying, I've gone against Putin. I have challenged him, and Trump is his lapdog, and the 1% have gotten more wealthy. Then we move on to climate change, where the president says he wants clean water and clean air without destroying businesses, and we need forest management. It was a non-answer on whether or not he believed the science of climate change. Then he turned around and clarified is that he did. He says he has a billion tree initiative, and he believes that climate change is partially man-made. While he believes in climate change, he's also eliminated a lot of Obama's initiatives because it was bad for businesses. Biden says that $2 trillion on green jobs, fracking, and he thinks he should also limit fracking. His energy plan won't ruin the economy, but will, and actually when he was vice president, brought energy costs down. He will weatherize 4 million buildings to reduce emissions and create numerous jobs. He will rejoin the Paris Accord. He will pledge $20 billion to save forests. He thinks that he should pledge $20 billion to other countries to save their forests or face economic consequences. He invokes the Green New Deal. However, he does not support the Green New Deal. He supports the Biden plan to upgrade these buildings. It will cost, but it will also create jobs, and he'll offer tax incentives and tax Trump's nuclear bomb the hurricanes comment. He says putting money into fighting and preventing these weather issues instead of paying for the damages afterwards will be a better use of our money and will help businesses and create jobs. Trump says Biden's plan is the Green New Deal, and he takes a shot at Biden's memory at that time. Biden says he does not support the Green New Deal, but the plan that he puts forth will pay for itself. We move on to election integrity. Biden says, go vote. That's it. Go vote. Mail-ins are safe. Trump has used mail-in ballots, which he has, but they were solicited ballots. That's true. But Trump is trying to dissuade people from voting and talks about Trump not committing to a peaceful transition. Trump says he was spied on in his campaign. They tried to stage a coup. He evokes the Logan Act against Flynn. He says mail-in was a disaster, and the problem isn't the solicited ballots; it's the unsolicited ballots that aren't being properly handled. He says it's fraudulent. He's counting on the Supreme Court to be able to handle the situation should the problem arise, and he did bring up the ballots being dumped, which we heard about in the news earlier this week. Biden said mail-in ballots must be postmarked by the 10th. That was also another point of contention, and they both talked about integrity of the elections. They both went on to say, this may take a while for the results to come in. And Chris Wallace did talk about the reason why a lot of mail-in ballots are thrown away or tossed out is because irregularities, because some aren't filled out properly, so on and so forth. So it may take a while to get proper results. And Biden pledged to not count victory until we know who won for sure. Trump's basically told his voters again, go vote, go support me, and pretty much we'll see what happens when it happens. Um, I'll discuss more about what I took away from the debate, so on and so forth, at another date tomorrow with another friend. However, I must say this debate was disgraceful. Both men were hyped up and they weren't really giving the other person a chance to answer the questions, and the attacks on the intelligence and you know the name calling, it just was not presidential on both their parts, and I found a lot of their conduct to be disgraceful. I did find the presidents to be more disgraceful than the vice presidents, but they both are 70-year-old men acting like 13-year-old boys. And that's the recap. I will give my review along with my friends tomorrow. So for the guys who didn't get to see the debates, there's a 16-minute recap on the debate itself, and I just saved you 90 minutes. You're welcome. Bye.